Hello everybody, and welcome back to the lab. Hope everyone's been enjoying our line of episodes so far. With me today, from down in the wonderful state of Louisiana, in New Orleans, is Mohamed. I'm Mohamed. And thank you for joining me today, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about this today because I know in a previous episode we had talked about residency versus non-residency with maybe in particular the OCS.
Right.
Um, Muhammad has a very unique background in the fact that physical therapist, professional athletics, and actually just completed his athletic training degree. So, before we kind of dive into all that, man, give me a little bit more about your background and kind of what got you to where you are today.
Yeah. So again, my name is Mohamed Al. I'm a physical therapist and assistant athletic trainer with the New Orleans Saints currently. I was born and raised in Dallas and did all of my schooling down there. So I did my bachelor's at the University of Texas at Arlington with my exercise science degree. I then pursued physical therapy school right after. I didn't get in my first try, but then luckily, after a year of becoming, I ended up working as a strength coach in that gap year, and applied for physical therapy school second time around, and thankfully got in. And that was at the University of Mary Hardin Baylor and down in Belton, Texas. So
Yeah.
kind of like that Central Texas or East Texas ish area.
Hmm.
Um, so completed my doctorate's degree, graduated in 2020 with my physical therapy degree. And then at this point, I don't, I have, I've ne I didn't know what an athletic trainer was. Like I know what the position name is, right? Like I've heard of an
Hmm.
athletic trainer, but I didn't exactly know what they were capable of or what they could do.
Hmm.
And so or the role that they played in healthcare and sports medicine. So that's just kind of where I stood. But at that time, I had started a physical therapy, like a student's physical therapy podcast. At least that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then it ended up turning into like a sports medicine podcast because I was inviting on a lot of dual credentialed, and not even dual credentialed always, but we get some guys from the NBA, the NFL, NHL. I had some guests from ESPN, Stefania Bell. So like just some really cool guests that I was able to invite on and just kind of pick their brains about things that I was interested in. And then if anyone else found it interesting, great. If they didn't, cool. So that was just kind of like the way I kind of went around it. And anyways, I did this podcast and I started noticing a lot of the guys that were in the pro level or at the pro level, they were dual credentialed. And so my line of questioning started kind of, honing in on that. So once I graduated physical therapy school, I had already gotten a little bit of a sense of an idea of what was almost kind of required to be at that level.
Hmm.
Um, with an asterisk mark, like it's not exactly required, but just, but I took on what I thought was going to be my dream job in the clinical setting, down in Plano, with performance medicine and sports therapy. And, and it was great. I mean, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of autonomy, I mean, as as a new grad, and for all the new grad listeners that are probably listening to this, you probably, for the most part, you would understand you probably don't get a lot of autonomy right out the gate, right? Like just in the clinical setting. You kind of go by protocols and things like that. So, not to get sidetracked, but I found myself having a lot of autonomy there. I was working with athletes and not professional athletes per se, but I mean, I was working with adolescents. I was working with geriatric athletes. Like it was great. I mean, I loved it. At the end of the day, it was people who wanted to be in the clinic. Like they were there because they wanted to be and they wanted to get better. And that's the population that I really gravitate towards. You avoid burnout that way too, I feel like. But
Hmm.
I, about 6 months in, was like, man, like, I mean, I love it here. And I started to feel almost guilty. I was like, man, but I really really love sports. And I always said that I was going into that. I was gonna attempt that. So like what do I need to do to get there? And I was like, okay, well, I have all these podcasts that I did. Let me kind of look back on those, listen to a few of those, talk to a few people, reached out to a few of my past guests and kind of pick their brains. And overall, like the overarching consensus was, and I'll shout out Luke Novosel here. He was a former athletic trainer and rehab director for the Mets, I believe, New York Mets. I hope I'm not butchering that as far as his position title, but he now, I think he works for the Pirates currently. But shout out to Luke because I had got on a phone call with him, and him and I really didn't have much of a we weren't like friends per se. We were like connects, and he was
Mhm.
willing to dedicate his time to inform me because he was a dual credentialed, and he had just gotten it and went that route. So, but his sport was baseball. Kind of called him and let him know like, hey, like I really want to get into the NFL. Like I really want to work at the professional level, whether it's NFL, NBA, but I'm really gravitating towards NFL because I love football. I love
Mhm.
being around that environment. And he was like, the way he described it, and I'll cut the story short, but pretty much he described it like as like a tunnel. And because I was deciding between residency and athletic training. And you're in this tunnel, and one tunnel is the athletic training route, and the other tunnel is the sports residency route. And if you go, the second you walk into this athletic training tunnel, there's light at the end of it. You can see it. Whereas you walk into this residency tunnel, you'll get there eventually if you do the right things, you make the right steps, and you're turning in the right directions. You're gonna see light, but you don't see it right away.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of enough for me to be like, okay, I see what you're saying here.
Mhm.
And ultimately that was the biggest reason I guess like why I decided to go the athletic training route because I felt there was more security in that, but then even more so now looking back on it, like I think that I made the overall best decision for myself career wise because and this is just me being honest and open and transparent. Like I recently have been seeing like a lot of job postings now for dual credentials in the sports level, whether that's collegiate, whether that's professional sports,
Mhm.
whether that's G League, you know, which I guess that's still considered professional sports, but you kind of get my drift there. But like you're starting to see like a shift of teams that are wanting those dual credentialed clinicians in that field. Again, it's not necessary. You don't need to be dual credentialed to be in professional sports.
Mhm.
I think that it's just shown us to be a lot harder. Now, I'll say this too, like I skipped a big portion because deciding to go to athletic training school was a really big step in my life because I was currently engaged and we were planning on getting married, right? I was engaged in 2022 and worked that entire year. Um, and I wanted to go to athletic training school, but I had a full-time job, full-time salary. And so coming home and telling my wife, like, how am I gonna come home and tell my wife, like, hey, by the way, we have to put the wedding on hold. We're probably not gonna have kids anytime soon. House is probably not a no-go. So, you know, how do I go home and explain that to my wife or my future wife? And
Holy
that
smokes.
was I was so scared to go have that conversation. And then when I did, I mean, Isabel, shout out to my wife, is the most phenomenal. She's so supportive, and I thank God for her every day. She's like, look, if you have a plan and you are sure of this plan and you're confident in it, I trust you. Do your thing. Let's go after your dream.
Mhm.
So love Isabel to death. She was great. I can't believe I skipped that entire portion. But she essentially is the biggest reason or one of the biggest reasons why I was able to do what I am currently doing today. So shout out to Isabel. But like I said, I all that just to say it's easy in the sense of it's easier the athletic training route in the sense of it'll be better for you in the long run.
Mhm.
Whereas, and maybe I shouldn't use the word easy, but because having a full-time salary job, quitting, and then becoming a student again, and having to juggle four jobs while you're in athletic training school, that's a mess in and of itself. While trying to plan for a wedding and still trying to keep up with your life responsibilities, I mean, that's a mess all in itself. You have to be truly dedicated um, to keep up with the bills. You're trying to make up for like a $80,000 salary, right? Like
Mhm.
that's a lot. And then on the other hand, it's for the sports residency route, like I think that the reason why it didn't really like that didn't really sell for me was sure I have I've got the easy way out. I've got or I wouldn't say easy way out. I've got the security blanket of being able to still get paid a salary
Mhm.
while working in the profession like working in the setting that I love but I just don't know if I'll get that job when I'm done,
Hmm.
right? Like it's it was the hardest decision I had to ever had to make because even with her support, I was still on the fence like which way do I choose? Like now I don't know how all of this is being perceived by the listener, but I think if you heard anything I've said, hear this part. And what I'm saying is if you're in that predicament where like you're already a physical therapist, again, I kind of went an unconventional route. I won't say backwards, but I went an unconventional route. Um, if you're in a position where you have to like, put your life on hold versus, kind of continue pushing forward in a direction that's kind of socially like that's kind of the direction you were supposed to go anyways, like it's a tough decision to make, especially if you've got other factors. Like, I mean, you just have to make sure the people around you are completely supportive, and you have to make sure that financially you're going to figure it out. And I lucked out completely. I had a supportive wife. I was able to find jobs that were accommodating with my schedule. It
Hmm.
worked out. But it was tough. So I know I kind of like scattered around that entire story a little bit, but all that just to say that was kind of like my overarching reasons why.
No, that's awesome, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm very happy to hear you have that kind of social structure and you have that in your life, and the assistance of the wife there is always a wonderful thing.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Don't go into it if you don't have a supportive wife. It won't work.
So since you've been in like the professional field for so long, in particular in the NFL, correct?
Um, I'm sorry. So not a long career. Not yet.
Hmm.
Is that what you were saying?
No, I'm saying like so since you've graduated, like since you've been in like practice, you've been in the NFL or been in professional sports.
No, no, no. So well, I guess for the first year and some change, I was in the clinic, and then I went into the NFL
Okay.
after athletic training school. But I've been in settings like when I was in athletic training school, I did children's neuropediatrics at home. I
Wow.
did acute care at the hospital. I did um uh, some skilled nursing work. I did so my settings were very varied. I did post-op. Um, so it was a lot of variety in the time that I was in athletic training school. So honestly, I've dabbled in a little bit of almost everything per se since becoming a licensed physical therapist. But if we're talking about like job salaries, I've been clinic, NFL. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's your experience been in the NFL thus far?
Oh, man, my experience in the NFL has been great so far. I love it. I mean, it's everything that I dreamed of. The New Orleans Saints is they're such a great organization. They make it feel like home. You'll people who know like they'll understand what I mean when like they take care of their people. Like they are like about family, they're about home life, making sure that their employees are good. Yeah, I mean, I love it here. The food is amazing, by the way. Oh my God. In New Orleans,
Yeah.
good Lord, they know how to season their food. And uh and I think that people here in the South, like it's good to be back in the South again. It's not a dig at like being in Denver or anything like that. I love Denver. I love the Broncos organization. And I was there as a seasonal intern um this past year, but uh the food's not as great. I'll say that. And then
Mhm.
I'll say people in the South are much nicer. I grew up in Dallas, so I'm used to you don't really know until you leave, and then you come back and you're like, oh wow, like they're holding doors open for me here, and yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. Like it's great, yeah, I love
Southern
it.
hospitality.
Yeah, you can't beat it.
I agree. It was a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, that's right, because you have experience in Texas. Yeah, yep, exactly.
Yeah. I love that place. I love Dallas a lot. Dallas was so much fun to be in.
It's a melting pot, man. I love it. I love Dallas. I mean, it's crazy. Don't get me wrong. Like you're gonna find yourself in some crazy spots, but like I wouldn't have it any other way. It's great.
Oh, that's awesome. So kind of leading into my I guess for developing clinicians and people who are in school right now and maybe they're kind of dabbling in the idea of like maybe I want to be in professional athletics or maybe I want to be, just private sector and working in athletics that way. Like kind of like you had done before. Like what would be maybe like maybe some pros and cons between both settings?
Yeah, and I just realized I didn't really get into that, but yeah, so I did do private sector physical. That was one of my jobs that I was juggling in the while I was in athletic training school. But I would say that as a developing clinician, like the pros and cons are obviously going to be so like in the private sector, pros are you have so much more autonomy. You are able to make decisions on your own. The athlete already is invested in you because they're paying for your one-on-one time. And
Hmm.
so it's they already kind of come in with this sense of trust, and you just have to make sure you're building upon that trust and you're building the correct rapport right after, and you're doing what's necessary um to maintain that, because at the end of
Hmm.
the day rapport is key, and anybody that knows me knows that that's my biggest thing. Like I don't care how smart you are, you have to build a good relationship with your clients, patients, athletes.
I love to hear that.
But I'll say that the autonomy is much better there. You're the sole decision maker.
Hmm.
And as long as the athlete trusts you, you're able to kind of guide them in the direction that you see best fit. Um, and like I said, I think that they just trust you more too. Like you're with them one on one, you're building a better relationship with them. You're in their house most of the time, or it's just it's a much more personal connection, I feel like, which goes a long way in rehab.
Hmm.
Um, Cons, you obviously don't have the same resources, right? Like you don't have a you don't have forced X, and you don't have,
Hmm.
a Dari movement system, and you don't have, all these other, you don't have a squat rack available to you. You have what's available to you, or to what's available to you is based on what the athlete has in their home, because you can't throw a squat rack in the back of your trunk, right? Like you can just you do
Hmm.
what you can. But I mean, again, like that's also a pro, because you're gonna have to make do with what you have, and at the end of it, that's gonna make you a much more creative physical therapist. It's gonna make you a better critical thinker, I think. And so, there's lots of pros and cons to those, but I think those would be the biggest ones. I think that for the pro level, obviously, is kind of like the opposite, right? Like you have the resources to look at data
Hmm.
uh, in regards to athlete injuries and be able to program based on that data. You have the resources like phenomenal therapists and athletic trainers around you who have experience, who can kind of lean in and provide guidance if needed. Um, you have the facilities and um, the security of a salary, right? Like if we're gonna get real. So it's different. It's just so much different. It's like I wouldn't ever like say one is better than the other. I
Hmm.
think that at the end of the day, it's all personal preference. And if you are the entrepreneur type and you really want to make a name for yourself, you don't want to be a part of an organization, you have no interest in working for a team, then I think going the private sector route is phenomenal. I think it's a great route as long as you are doing what's necessary. But you also have to understand in the private sector, another con would be, if anything happens, that's essentially on you. It's not, because we know injuries are multifactorial, right? Like, but I
Hmm.
think that essentially that athlete is going to look, I mean, they don't think that way. They're
Hmm.
like, well, I've been doing this. Why is it not working? So I think it's on you much more than it is, you know, we win as a team, we lose as a team here, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I hope I answered that well enough for you.
Yeah,
But
no, I liked it. That
yeah,
was good.
yeah.
So now that you've been with the Saints now for 3 weeks, I guess between like, have you seen like a gross difference between how certain organizations handle particular types of rehab? Like, do you have like the whole team and everyone's integrated like nicely, or is it like everyone's in their own individual silo?
No, yet no. So without getting into too much detail,
Hmm.
the Broncos have been really huge about from since I've been there at least.
Hmm.
Um, they were really big on everybody a part of the sports medicine team is a part of this meeting, which happens every day at this time,
Hmm.
like or every week at this time. It's very organized, very structured. And the same exact thing goes for here at New Orleans Saints. They are, I think, the only way for an organization to be successful is that approach. It's that sports medicine model that we're we're not operating as individual silos here. Like if we're going to operate individually, even though all of our departments clash every minute of every day, that's not going to get any work done. I think that creates an environment for ego. I think that creates an environment for disorganization, um, duplication. It's just overload, right? Like there's just so much that you could get into. I mean, like for example, if the strength and conditioning coach and the trainers aren't on the same page, but the lift consists of rear foot elevated split squats, 3 sets of 5 at like 80% max, and I just had them do rear foot elevated split squats for 3 sets of 8. You know, it's just and the same day, it just doesn't work out. You're creating an environment for overload. Injuries are going to happen. It's not pliable. So I think that making sure that the team in and of itself is operating as a whole, and that's how they do it, at least with the organizations that I've been a part of.
Mhm.
And I'm very grateful to say so. So yeah, no, we've got so as far as these two organizations go, and by those I mean the New Orleans Saints and the Broncos. I know that sports medicine, that would be physical therapists, athletic trainers, are involved with nutrition, are also involved with strength and conditioning, are also involved with psych if needed. So it's a very holistic approach.
That's awesome. I love to
Yeah,
hear that.
yeah. Everyone hears the same thing too. Even if psych is going to be in that meeting, even if we're not exactly talking about psych, they're going to hear what's going on because they need to be informed when they're having their conversations with their athletes, and so it's great.
That's cool, man. No,
Yeah,
that makes me so happy because I mean, athletes come first, and I
yeah,
agree with you. When people invite ego into the mixture, it's just not a great thing.
yeah.
Um, so last question. Last question. If you were to go back to your graduating day, what would you do differently?
I think, honestly, I don't think I'd change anything for me. Like it's easy to say I'd go back and go straight into athletic training school, but I think that everything that has happened in my life since graduation day, whether that was the connection that I built, whether it's this one person that led to another clinical rotation, whether it was this one contact I made while juggling like those 4 jobs in athletic training school, every single thing that has happened there has led me to this point. And I'm so happy where I'm at right now that I wouldn't change a single thing. I would let everything be as it was supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, I I have much greater aspirations. Your goals are never gonna are never gonna end, right? Like you get to one point, you're like, you're ready for the next thing.
Hmm.
But I'm so happy with where I'm at. I've reached one of my goals in life, and now it's just my job to just make sure that I'm doing the best I can to show them why I'm here, making sure I'm doing best by the athletes, and just kind of giving them everything that I've got. So I'm not to be cliche or anything, but like I love it. Like I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change anything. Yeah,
Great answer, man. I absolutely love that. No, glad you found your passion. And thank you again for joining me here today, man.
absolutely.
No, but I hope you guys all enjoyed today's episode. I'll be tagging your Instagram on here and I'll be putting up the episode here later. So, hope everyone has a good one. Enjoy the weekend.